Hey everybody, it's producer Scott here. If you're seeing this, it's because the audio on this episode is a little janky. You'll hear that Joey's audio is sort of repeating the whole time. I did my best to try to remove that, but I was unable to successfully do so. So, on that note, enjoy the show, and we will have it fixed next time. See you.
Hey everybody, this is Brandon Gordon, former voice for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and you're listening to Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. Go Jackets, go ACC.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. My name's Jody for he. It is Mike McDaniel. Mike, State of the Program series can continue. We've got one of our favorites tonight.
I'd like to just first apologize to Cam Underwood, managing editor of State of the U, for canceling on him 4 different times. So here we are. We did it. We're recording here the night of February the 11th. It's a Tuesday night. And Cam, welcome back to the show, finally. And again, my sincere apologies.
No, man, all good. Always good to, have the super friends join up again. So, we were chopping it up like we always do before hitting record and everything. So, yeah, I'm a staunch listener. Been on here with you guys for a good long time. Glad to be back talking about a fairly successful and also disappointing Miami Hurricanes football season. Two things can be true.
Yep. What a professional, perfect transition.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, Miami this year goes 10-3. By a lot of people's standards, that would be a really good year. I think by Miami standards, and especially by the expectations coming into the year, not as much. And I mean, especially doing all that and realizing that you've got a Heisman finalist quarterback, much less some of that quarterback play we've seen in Miami in decades, probably. I guess talk me through what is the feeling coming out of there? I mean, what was it successful? Does it leave a sour taste in your mouth? Kind of, it's kind of some common emotions for a lot of the fan base.
Yeah, it's disappointing, to be honest. And I know that's, like you, like the three of us, with Scott, have the group chat, right? And sometimes we will complain about the mundane things in our lives, completely and totally first world problems. You know what I mean? Like, I went to Starbucks and they were out of the blonde espresso, or I went to, whatever. And, I had the fast pass at Busch Gardens, but the one thing I wanted to fast pass doesn't take fast pass. Like those kind of nitpicky things. That's how I feel about this Miami Hurricanes season, because going into the year, I predicted 11-1. So let's walk it back. My baseline with this program is 7-5 now. That's where I've been for years, because once bitten, twice shy. It's not even like, it's like 5 times bitten, 20 times shy. So I'm like, look, that's where mentally I'm going to start from. And then in the spring, we got Cam Ward. That's a 3.5 or 4 win player to me. You get Damian Martinez also. That's okay, cool. I'm real solid on that 4-win addition. Then we get Tyler Barron as gravy on top of what should have been a great defensive line. Oh, I'm feeling real good on my 4-win addition over what my normal personal baseline is. So I predicted 11-1. And regardless of that, the other stipulation was, even if you only go 10-2 in the regular season, you have to find your hind parts in Charlotte playing for the ACC championship game. Anything short of that is an abject failure. And we fell short of that. And if we had gotten there, ostensibly, then you're penciled into the college football playoff, especially when the college football playoff and all sports are television games, guys. You don't think that they wanted another Cam Ward show in there, even if it's only one? And that's where we should have been. And it's faulty. Just recapping on the college football playoff, it's faulty that the comparison was made between a 10-2 Miami and a 9-3 Alabama that got blown out at a 6-6 Oklahoma team. The conversation and competition should have been with 10-2 Tennessee who was solidly in with no controverting opinion. That's the comparison, because we play to win the game, and wins and losses matter. Shut up about the rest of it, because Georgia only lost one regular season game. You know what I mean? Like Tennessee only lost two. So even if you're going apples to apples, having Alabama above Miami, shenanigans. But yeah, it's, the first 10-win season since 2017. Great. Love that. Cam Ward, the best Miami Hurricanes quarterback in the better part of 40 years. Right? We've written it. Mike McCoy on stateoftheu.com. Please go over and fan with us, by the way. Wrote a piece saying that, Cam Ward's season was the greatest quarterback season ever in the history of the Miami Hurricanes. And we have two Heisman Trophy winners to our credit in the past. You know what I mean? So you take a legendary, transformational season that rewrote the record books for an individual at the most important position on the field. You have the number one offense in America by far, and you're up 21-0 in the second quarter on the road in Syracuse. So you're 43 minutes of game time away from Charlotte. And if you get to Charlotte, that means you're going to the college football playoff, and you fell short of that. I'm sorry. That's disappointing. And the other thing on top of that, and this is funny because, when we do these things and we write these words and we say these things and we put them out into the ether, and you wonder if people read them, you wonder if people hear them. I wrote on National Signing Day that it was an abject disappointment for Miami to be closer to 20 in the recruiting rankings than 5. I got contacted personally by multiple people who work at the University of Miami asking me, imploring me to take that down. But to me, the standard is the standard, because if you came in and you recruited a number 8 and then a number 4 and you go, and it was the kind of season that it was, now I know it took some offensive heroics because the defense was terrible. I get all of that. But yeah, that wasn't good enough either. So, I mean, Miami's covered some of those things in the transfer portal, but yeah, there were things to enjoy. Elijah Arroyo developing into a top 50 pick since he was finally healthy. Xavier Restrepo, the 5th-year senior, rewriting the receiving record book, for his hometown team that he always wanted to play for, and is just, a yeoman, hardworking kid, has, a nonprofit foundation. He sponsors a 7-on-7 team. It's great in the community, summa cum laude, like all the things, right? There's, Cam McCormick in his 9th year, finally healthy after 5 season-ending injuries, being able to play every game for the last 2 years. There's things, there that are laudable from this season. There are things that are enjoyable. And I damn sure enjoyed 10 wins way more than 5 and 7 from 2 years ago. Yet and still, with all that being true, we went back to Orlando to play the Camping World Pop-Tarts, Russell Athletic, whatever, rebrand bowl game that we've been to 8 billion times, sitting at home watching teams compete for championships that we should have with this kind of a team. It leaves a sour taste in the mouth.
Well, I mean, at least a live mascot was sacrificed on television. All the media went nuts about it, but
yeah,
which is enough to distract from Miami losing to Iowa State.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hooray for branding.
I mean, I think it goes differently if Cam Ward doesn't gracefully bow out at halftime, which was the plan, to turn it over to Emory Williams and see if the in-house option could be the future. Spoiler alert, if you didn't see that game, the answer is absolutely not.
In fact, he is not.
He is very, very much not. But again, going back to recruiting, I've written that. I said that he's a program guy. The guy that we got last year, a program guy who's, a former basketball player who was like 20 and 14 on the hardwood. He's 6'7", like Judd Anderson's physical, but are you skilled? Probably not. Now, I think the guy that we got in this class could be, but you have 2 program fillers, which is why you had to go out and get a Cam Ward. That's why you had to go out and, do these things before. But, whatever. I guess that's revisionist. Well, it's not revisionist history. It's just, if Cam Ward plays that entire game, we don't lose. But hey.
I would agree. The thing you said about Cam Ward being like 3.5 wins, like worth 3.5 wins for Miami. I mean, I don't want to. We'll talk about Carson Beck later. I don't want to have that conversation yet. But
Okay.
we mentioned on a news show we did, Cam, which I'm sure you heard relatively recently when we were talking about Carson Beck. The whole discussion was, well, let's talk about what Cam Ward was worth to Miami this year, because Miami has never been short on talent. How many times have we had the conversation, the three of us on the show, and we've had you on? We're like, okay, but what are we doing at quarterback? We
Yep.
had that answer this year. That's why all three of us were very confident in picking Miami to win double-digit games. Like if we go back to the preseason, I mean, Joey and I get a lot of stuff wrong in the preseason. One thing we didn't get wrong this year was how good Miami was going to be. And that's because they had a guy like Cam Ward. Now, you see how some of these games went. You talk about all the comebacks, the Virginia Tech game. You talk about the Cal game, the Louisville shootout, right? Several games this year where you were like, man, if they didn't have Cam Ward, they would have been in a lot of trouble there. And that's what he's worth. That's why you have folks on your site writing about how he's maybe the best quarterback in school history. And you mentioned it, a school that's had multiple Heisman winners and some very good quarterbacks that did not win the Heisman, right? And they have not had a quarterback like Cam Ward in a really, really long time. And we've hammered that point home really the entire season. We hammered that point home. And I think moving forward, obviously, Miami's going to continue to recruit under Mario, and they're always going to have a really talented team. It's a matter of getting quarterback right. And it's just really hard to imagine moving forward they're going to have as good of a year as they just got out of Cam Ward, which is why, to your point, this is so disappointing to look up, win 10 games, and then still walk away from the year disappointed. This had to be an ACC title year. Had to be. Just getting to the game, right? You lose the ACC title game, you lose the conference title game, right? But you have to get there at least.
Right. And that was the other component of my prediction. Like you have to be in Charlotte in December with this team. And, the easy retrospective, well, that not even retrospective, but the easy comparison that I made and everyone pretty much made was the chips are pushed to the middle of the table, same way that Florida State did in 23. Look, they said we're all in, and whatever happens later, happens later. They're the LA Rams. We're trading for Matt Stafford. We're trading for Jalen. We're trading for everybody because those draft picks are still in middle school. I don't care about little Javante and his pre-calc right now. I need an NFL player to do NFL things to win this championship, right? And Florida State went all in. Unfortunately, they had the injury issues, but they navigated all the way through and won the championship of the conference undefeated. Miami endeavored to do the same thing, and the defense just absolutely let it down. But that was the connection to this season when everybody's talking about, and like, it's funny because one thing gets said and then it gets parroted. People were talking about, okay, like this $20 million roster and like all those things. It wasn't 20 for Miami, excuse me, but I mean, it was substantial. The NIL money that was paid out to retain players and also to go obtain players from elsewhere in the pursuit of at least competing for championships. That means getting to Charlotte and then from there probably into the college football playoff. And whatever happens, happens. You're competing for the championship. You might don't win it. We didn't even do that. Like it, yeah, that's a bitter pill to swallow, to be perfectly honest.
In your mind, Cam, I mean, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more in depth in a second. I mean, they move on from Lance Guidry, defensive coordinator, after the year. In your mind, I mean, is that where the blame falls? Is it on him, or do you just say this is on Mario? Or, I mean, I feel like I'm in your position saying this is an incredible discipline where the places we didn't go this year. I would think that we're blaming somebody or something for that, and I didn't get this. This is like a really written team either. So I mean, is it bad luck? Is it Mario? Is it Guidry? Is it something else?
I think the fact that he's looking for employment elsewhere shows what it was. It was the defense. Yep. I mean, and everybody knew that the defensive secondary had questions coming into this year. When you lose Cam Kinchins, who was the catch-all on defense. Like, you can get beat on the corner, but free safety flowing over the top, or he's making these crazy interceptions. First team All-American as a sophomore, comes back as a junior, junior and senior, and things like that. But then you lose James Williams also. Now, when he got to the league, the agency of the player, right? At the lower levels, he can say, I'm a safety. James Williams famously would name search his name after recruiting events in high school. And so myself and some other people, shout out to Bud Elliott, because we were talking about him before we recorded, tweeted after a Nike regional camp saying, this kid is a high school sophomore, 6'5", 225. He's a cheeseburger away from a defensive end. Like, at least with the difference play linebacker. And he would name search and said, nah, I'm a safety coach. And then he first team All-American in high school. Great. Even in college, they started walking him down a little bit. You get to the league and say, hey, buddy, number 53. You're not wearing number 20 anything. Shut up. Number 53, in the box, heels at 6, go hit somebody. But in college, he was good enough to still be a valuable defensive back. And going into the season, we knew that was going to be the Achilles heel of this team. What we didn't account for was Ruben Bain straining his hamstring in the opener and basically being 60% for the entire year. So that takes your most explosive pass rusher out. The defensive line in general underperformed a lot. I mean, shout out to Simeon Barrow transferring in from Michigan State and getting first team all conference, but and Ahmad Moten making steps forward to be a rotational player. But that unit, the structure of this defense was what it needed to be was you get home with 4 up front, you let Kiko Mawinoa move forward as a run support defender and blitzer. You have Wesley Basaint / whoever else you bring in at the linebacker have to, be the coverage people, the move guys, and enough in the secondary where there are some leaks, but not enough to sink your ship. And none of that happened on defense. And I wrote the defensive backs review and linebackers, actually both, for stateoftheu.com. And so if I'm looking at it, it gave Mish Powell, who came from Washington, played for a national championship 2 years ago, right? This is a player going to the NFL, started on a championship caliber team, and the scheme let him down. So he was often out of position because of the scheme employed by Lance Guidry at safety. Now you pair him with Jaden Harris, who was a very athletic kid coming out of high school from Georgia, who I thought should have been a 4-star based upon his athleticism, but he was a 3-star because he was kind of inconsistent. You saw all that inconsistency consistently this year. He took bad angles, he missed tackles, he's doing all of the wrong things. So you pair those two together, then you have injury on top of injury. Jadis Richard, transfer from Vanderbilt. He was actually halfway decent. He blew out his knee after 9 games, so he's gone for the end of the year. Damari Brown, who was a nailed-on starter, right, gets injured 5 plays into the opener at Florida. Bang, he's gone for the entire season. He came back for Syracuse, but he wasn't himself. So you take 2 starting guys from a unit that was already the question mark unit, and then you think, okay, what does Jaden Harris do when he steps up onto the big stage? He shows that he's maybe a 3A player. He needs to go back to the minors to work on hitting that curveball, right? Okay, well, we got a star player in Mish Powell, but we're using him in a way in the scheme that can consistently be eviscerated. So, yeah, I mean, with all of that being said, even without the injuries, the defense is the reason that things started to go sideways. If you look at Virginia Tech, Mike, that was an extra regular ass offense. 38 points. Excuse me, what? You know what I mean? Like, even your big thumping linebacker, Kiko Mawinoa, hitting Bashil Tootin in the hole. Tootin shrugs it off like he's a gnat and runs 80 yards for a touchdown. Excuse me? You can't have that from Kiko Mawinoa. You can't have a 100-yard kickoff return touchdown at Louisville when you go up 14. The ensuing kickoff goes back for a touchdown. Now it's a ball game again because you had just gotten a stop. Same thing against Wake Forest. Wake Forest, and you get number 16 Robert Stafford, who has since transferred on to UCLA. The only reason he was on this roster was because he was fast, and he's getting run by guys from Wake Forest. Excuse me? Like, to the point of the season, and I'm going to wrap it up here, to the point of the season in which Miami played Cal. Like, in that game, Cal had their 5 longest pass plays of the year and 6 of the 7 longest pass plays of the year to that point of the season in one singular game. It was almost like they were in the meetings and drew things up. And I'm sitting here, at 2:30 in the morning, East Coast time, in the fourth quarter, right? Talking about, oh my God. And people are like, yeah, Mish Powell. I said, look, Mish Powell, they're running the defense. They're running a scheme beater that's perfect for what the defense was. If he doesn't jump that over route, then you hit the over route and he just goes up the sideline like it's Tutu Atwell from the Louisville game years ago. You know what I mean? But no, his responsibility, if there's a guy crossing his face, he has to go get that. Now, there's all kinds of space and opportunity behind him, but he did what the defense intended for him to do. They just had a combination that took advantage of that kind of a thing. So, and there were plenty of other instances of such a thing happening. Again, the worst of which, I believe, the Syracuse game. Because Syracuse scored on the first drive. They had an alignment issue, which was a correct penalty, by the way. I went and screenshotted it. They did have too many men in the backfield to negate that penalty or that touchdown. But you go up 21-0, and then you let Kyle McCord dot you up for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns after that? I said the defensive coaching job was fireable in many instances, and he got fired. And, I mean, it's rare that you can ascribe the issues to a single individual. I think, yeah, it was Lance Guidry. It was the defense, and that's why he got fired.
And it's interesting, too, because, like, Miami's had better defenses, but worse quarterback play. And Joey kind of jumped my next question, which was, where do we kind of put this team in terms of like level of frustration? Because on one hand, you found your quarterback to cover things up, cover issues that you had. And I was thinking coming into the year, well, Cam Ward's going to cover up issues that Miami has with the rest of their offense at times, right? Inconsistencies in the backfield, inconsistencies at receiver that we've seen the last few years. Like, oh, Cam's going to cover that up. And I wouldn't say that he covered up issues on the offense this year. I thought the offense was incredible, but I wasn't expecting Miami's defense to be this bad. And so it's almost like you have Cam Ward just making this thing a machine on offense. You're like, all right, they're good to go. And the season ended up going kind of how I thought in terms of like Miami's a double-digit win team. And yeah, they're probably 3 or 4 wins better because Cam Ward's their quarterback and he pulls them out of the muck. But I was expecting him to pull the offense out of the muck, not pull the defense out of the muck. That's what was so shocking.
Yeah, and he, in the end, was tasked with doing both and could only do one and not the other. And even, I know that obviously, that Joey went to Georgia Tech, and so we're going to talk about that game.
Looking forward to it.
But like, that wasn't. It was frustrating because that was the first loss of the year. That game wasn't bad. That was just a game that we lost, like, and the thing, when I rewatched it and I looked at everything, it really came down to about 15 plays.
It was moments.
Georgia Tech won all of them. Miami was the best third down offense in America, right? I have the stats pulled up. In that game, they had their worst conversion percentage of the year, 3 out of 10 on third down. And I think 1 out of, actually, hold on, I have to look. Offense, fourth down, and 1 out of 4 on fourth down. So 4 out of 14 on third and fourth down. Boom, right? There were 3 games that the defense gave up lots of conversions. Virginia Tech, aforementioned, 9 out of 14 conversions. Georgia Tech, 9 out of 14 on third down. And then Syracuse, 7 out of 10. They didn't even get too many third downs, but 3 of the more contested games. So, I mean, okay, so maybe it was about 25 plays, but like it really came down to those money downs, like on a first, second down, open play kind of, situation scenario. It was a very even game. Georgia Tech just won every single monumental moment. And then, Miami ended up losing that one. So, like, that was frustrating, but like Syracuse, that was infuriating. Like, it,
There were some
21
coaching decisions late in that game too that really kind of
Oh
threw
my
that one off.
god, bro! Like, and I don't, I understand the thought of field goal, stop, go score a touchdown. Why do I understand it, do you ask? Because we did it at Cal. Like that exact situation scenario. We need to, get the points now. We don't got to go for the touchdown. We're going to get a stop and get the ball back, and we're going to go win, right? Shout out to Matt Hasselbeck from the playoffs. We want the ball. We're going to go win. And then threw a pick six, right? Like that.
Somebody was going to win.
Right. I understand the motivation. In that game, Miami had not stopped Syracuse's offense to the beginning of the second quarter, save once. And you're going to take the ball out of the hands of your Heisman Trophy candidate, the ACC Player of the Year, your clear MVP, the best quarterback that this storied program has ever had, on 4th and goal on the 8-yard line, and you're going to take the ball out of his hands to kick it, and then, and I mean, look, Borgal is automatic. You're going to make that. But after that, you're going to rely on this defense that hasn't gotten but one stop since 3 minutes were gone in the second quarter. You don't want to win. I would have rather gone for it on 4th and 8 and been debating and said, man, I wish they would have called a different play call. But there was never a chance that Miami was getting the ball back. Fran Brown, as expected, emptied that playbook on those 6 plays and 3 first downs. And I mean, Trevor Pena on a fake crack reverse. I mean, like, to seal the ball game on the run by the slot receiver, like, there was that one. That's infuriating, like that. And especially, like, bro, run the ball first of all. Like, why are we snapping the ball at 15 in the second quarter? You know what I mean? Walk to the line, see it, check if you want to. Why are we snapping it with 21? Why are we going quick? Why? And Damian Martinez is running through, and Mark Fletcher, because Miami had 5 starting running backs this year, 5 starting caliber running backs. That's why Chris Johnson left, because there's too many dudes and only one ball. But you got 6 or 5'11", 230. And behind him, 6'2", 235. And then behind him, you have a freshman who's super fast. And behind him, you got a redshirt freshman who's super fast. Oh, and then you got AJ Allen from Nebraska, who could be starting at Nebraska still to this day. And he's over there just kind of like holding his helmet, waiting for a time. And he comes in and rips off 8 yards a carry. Like, it was the mismanagement of that game early and then also late was just, that just, and at like some point, you don't want to play for pride. You see them over there hyped up, popping up after every play, jawing in your face. Nah, we got that. Bro, if this is Madden, if this is NCAA, and you're at the crib 21-0, 2 minutes into the second quarter, off the sticks, new person. Hey, let's go. Nah, hey, go make another drink. Go get another beer. Mike, it's your turn. Come on, man. Come on. New game, pick a team. That's what it should have been. And you lose that game? Rawr. I'm upset.
I will say real quick, the one thing that all 3 of us have in common is none of our alma maters beat Syracuse this year. The one thing Cam and I have in common is both of our schools blew a multi-score lead on the road at Syracuse, which is a lot of fun also.
Oh, very nice. Cool. Look at that. Cool. What a community we're building.
A lot of fun.
Jeez,
Fran
so,
Brown
it was
community.
Yeah, I know. But to the original question or statement that Mike made. Yeah, Cam Ward was brought in to elevate the offense and then took them from middling to the best in the country. You didn't think that you were going to have a defense that was ranked down in the hundreds like Mark D'Onofrio was back employed in Coral Gables. And once that really manifested itself, even for Superman, it got to be a bridge too far.
It's funny to think on it and looking at it. We've talked about the defensive struggles and realizing there was only one game this year where Miami scored less than 36 points, and most of them they got north of 40, right? And for a team like to score 36 plus every single game, like in college, especially in the ACC, like that should win you more or less every game. I guess it kind of did, but the fact to lose at one point, giving up 42, that's kind of tough. I don't know what that had anything. I'm just thinking, but I look at the schedule back.
Yeah.
We talk about. Go ahead.
There was one game in which Miami did not score 36 points.
I can think of what it was. Yeah.
It was the one. It was 28-23 at Georgia Tech.
It was.
Which again is like the thing, because you're like, this, like the points are there.
Yeah.
Every week, but when you, what did I say earlier? 4 out of 14, 4 out of 15 on 3rd and 4th downs, like, and 2 times inside the Tech 30, right? So even if you kick field goals, those 2, then you're 29-28 and you're skirting out of Atlanta. Like, yo, give me the Hartsfield. Let's go, bro. Like, you're running out of there like you stole something. But yeah, it was an outlier in a bad way. But hey, credit to what the Yellow Jackets did, because it was frustrating. It was the pistol version of the Coach Paul Johnson triple. And
more or less,
just like when CPJ was there and we struggled with the triple, we struggled with it, out of, pistol and shotgun. And then that goddamn freshman just came in there dotting us up like right off the bench, like, cool, no warm up. Oh, it's 3rd and 14, dot in between 3 defenders on for 15 yards. We're gonna move the sticks. What?
Yeah, just freshman slot receiver. Yeah. Well, so that's where, like, if I'm in your place, what I'm frustrated with here is that those 2 losses, I feel like there were significant coaching gaffes. And we've talked about the Syracuse game and had a big lead and blew it. But then with the Georgia Tech game was a little different. Like you're saying, yeah, it was individual moments. Miami gained Georgia Tech by 65 yards in that game. Like, only one turnover. It wasn't like it's individual moments. I think what really would have gotten me as a Miami fan watching that game is middle of the second quarter, and it became blatantly obvious what Georgia Tech was doing on offense based on which quarterback was in the game. They brought Philo in, and if he's in the game, it's a passing play. And if King is in the game, he can't throw it. Like, his shoulder was totally jacked, and it's like, it's so. And if you're the defense, if it's a run or a pass, that gives you a leg up, and you still couldn't spit. Like, that's what would have driven me up a wall watching a game from the other side. I watching as a Tech fan, I kind of couldn't believe. I was like, have they not figured this out yet? I know what's happening here.
Right. But that was the game that really lit the fire under Lance Guidry's seat. Like, it was a little toasty with Virginia Tech. I have to say, he was out of bounds and didn't catch the ball. Like, it was right in front of where I was sitting in the press box. He never had that ball. That was the correct call.
Listen.
It is what it is. And if it was the other way, like, if he would have caught that ball, I was staring right at it and would have just been
Joey,
as I was in 1991 when I was at the Colorado-Michigan Hail Mary play game. I was there, right? And saw Westbrook catch the ball and, oh my God. Oh my goodness, right? If that would have been it, that would have been it. He didn't catch the ball. But we're in that position against a team that, like, on offense, but they're dotting us up also. Okay, then you have the Cal game with all of those explosive plays, back to back, trick plays or regular, you know what I mean? Okay, that's a thing. And then Louisville, that was less infuriating from a defensive standpoint because that Brown was going to dial some stuff up. Like, you knew that was going to be a shootout going in. But then special teams let you down even when you get up by 2 scores. So, like, that's a little frustrating. But yeah, the Georgia Tech game, because of what you said, Joey, of like, that they're going to just run quarterback power. They're just going to or if the freshman kid 14 comes in, they're gonna run a drop back pass. Like there's no subterfuge about what's going on, you know, and not being able to figure that out. And you can talk about, okay, well, maybe they ran a different scheme. They did. They actually started with the 3-3 stack. They brought in 3 linebackers in that game. Okay, but what are the responsibilities? Like who has what? Because you see that they're doing all this jet motion, so you have to account for the same thing as a triple: dive, quarterback, pitch. Those are the 3 things. Now it looks a little bit differently, but you couldn't figure that out at all. You're just like, basically, we have better athletes than these nerds at Georgia Tech, so hopefully you go out there and make plays. Spoiler alert, maybe you don't. And yeah, so that was the one that really turned the heat up.
I will say, just back to the Virginia Tech point real quick. Joey can attest to this, and I know you listen to this. I just want to remind you, the ref show at the end was like 15th on my list of complaints from that game. I was really upset with how Virginia Tech played. I said, I'm not going to come on the podcast and complain about the officiating. And I said that. And I did a little bit at the end, but there were 1,000 reasons why Virginia Tech lost that game other than the play at the end. That the fan base wanted to raise hell with the ACC officials because that's what fans do. But there was all sorts of stuff. The sequence, but I don't want to rehash the entire thing, but the sequence before halftime where Pry calls the panic timeout and then Tech punts and then Borregales hits a 57-yard or whatever it was, and it was a free 3 points. I lost my mind. Like I lost my mind on that. And that ended up being very important in the outcome of the football game, right?
In a 1-point game,
Yeah. So
no, I mean,
frustrating
look,
coaching stuff.
Even during that game, you know, as I was sitting in the press box talking to my buddies and everything, like I was getting ready to, you know, do my normal halftime Twitter hiatus. Like, okay, we're gonna go get another, you know, fill up my water cup that I bring with me. You know, maybe go get a soda, or, you know, pop, you know, whatever. And then wait, why is the clock not running? They called a timeout because he's hitting him from 60 pregame. Like a true senior, like, or 5th-year senior, all-time leading scorer, like, kid has a incredible leg. You know, like I nicknamed it the Borregales kicking dynasty because, you know, we had the brother and then we get the other brother. Like he's real good. He was a Groza finalist last year, and you want to give us a chance to go grab 15 yards and give him a shot from deep? Hey, it didn't make sense to me either, but, you know, hey, thanks.
Yeah. Oh. Bad coach.
As a neutral observer, the game was fun and chaotic as hell.
Chaotic, yes.
Perfect.
Fun
perfect game.
In the end only. But shout out to Tech too. Man, look, those 2 interceptions that y'all had of guys showing one thing, but then having the freedom to go make a play and making the plays. That was impressive. That was really, really impressive. So, yeah.
There's some signs every now and then, you know? There's some signs.
And
then they do some real stupid shit, and I just want to pull my hair out. There are some signs of a Brent Pry coach defense in there, and then I just want to pull my hair out. But yeah. Anyway, transitioning, because this is just a really important part of the conversation for this spring and upcoming season here. As we sit here in February, you now have to replace Cam Ward, and you go to the portal to do it. And Miami goes the Carson Beck route again, you know, and we know his elbow situation. He's banged up. I don't think he's going to be participating in any spring stuff. I know he won't. Elbows jacked up, surgery, everything else. I guess, in my opinion, Cam, and you tell me, you know the roster a lot better than I do, and Joey does. In my opinion, I don't think Carson Beck needs to be Cam Ward if the defense just plays at like a top 75 level. Like if Beck plays like a top 30 quarterback in the sport and you get a top 75 defense, I think this team can win 10 games again. But those are 2 gigantic gigantic ifs, right? I mean, you're taking a sizable step down at quarterback, I think, right? I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect Beck, but like, he's not Cam Ward.
Right.
And on the defensive side, it's a big we'll see, but the defense, I think, is just an even bigger question. It's like, how do we fix what we just saw this year, right? Because I think just slightly above average quarterback play and a much better defense, and this ACC is not very good. I mean, you're going to be in the 9-10 win neighborhood and have a chance to go to Charlotte. That's my thought.
I mean, that's where we should be. Carson Beck is very good. He is not Cam Ward. Like, we just saw the best season by a quarterback in Miami Hurricanes history. To expect that again is foolish. So there's going to be a level of difference between those two. There just is, because you're not going to have the best season every season in perpetuity. You know what I mean? The thing with Carson Beck is like 7,500 yards and like 60 touchdowns or more, in 2 years, at Georgia. This is a kid who can hoop. Like, I know that he's, recovering from a elbow injury and everything, but like, I think that he's better than people are giving him credit for. So what's the happy medium? For me, I think that he's more of a 2-win player than a 4-win player, like 2 and a possible maybe. Or maybe you get that possible in combination with a wide receiver, a couple defensive plays, a couple run plays, to feed in and make that a 3. So for me, I'm looking at like a 9-3, best case scenario 10-2 type of a thing. If you look at the schedule, it's harder next year than last. So you trade Ball State, who was ranked like 132nd out of 136 in FBS, like one of the worst teams in captivity. You remove them and replace them with Notre Dame, who played for a national championship. That immutably makes the non-conference a couple degrees tougher.
A little harder, yeah.
Right. Florida,
slightly,
probably better than now we don't play them in the opener, we play them in game 4, but ostensibly they're going to be a measure better 16 games of DJ Lagway than, in experience than in the opener last year. So that game, peer to peer, same team, probably a tougher test, but it's at home. So maybe about the same as going up, to their stadium that we blew them out of. USF, same thing, probably better than they were last year over year, but now you're playing at home. So there's 8 home games because of that scheduling quirk of adding USF starting on the road last year, which was smart. So you have that, which is great. But then we also have the longest run in conference with no bye weeks, because our bye weeks are 5 and 7, sandwiching the Florida State game. What in the hell? ACC. And I know that they did that to Carolina and Duke also with the 2 byes in 3 weeks thing. That's terrible. So we got 4 games bye. So 4 games ending with Florida at home, bye week, travel to Tallahassee, so another major rivalry game. And we started with Notre Dame. So you got 3 rivalry games in the first 5 games, bye, and then you run the rest of the schedule. That's challenging. And as I already said, there's only 4 road games. Half of them are at the end of the year in November. The penultimate week, travel up to Lane Stadium, enter Sandman against your Hokies. And then
they'll be bad, don't worry. They'll be bad. Yeah.
Whatever. It's still going to be a tough test for us to get past because we've lost a bad, hey, we've talked about it before. Miami was the reason that Mike London stayed employed at Virginia for so long, because we kept losing those bad teams. God dang it!
We won't put anything past Miami. We remember the Kenny Pickett. We remember the Kenny Pickett season finale as a freshman. We won't put anything past Miami.
Which that game basically got him drafted in the first round, because nobody talked about what he did through his career. It was always, you remember when his first start ever against Miami? That game was like when the Packers arrested Brett Favre and Matt Flynn came in for one game in the last game of the year against my Lions.
LSU legend.
And and threw for 1,000,000 yards and got a $70 million contract in that one game. That's basically what Kenny Pickett did as a true freshman that year. And
American dream.
to follow that up, as soon as I saw last year that Miami at Pitt was on the schedule for 2025, I said, that's the last week of the year. Set it, forget it. He was like, no, it could be somewhere else. I said, guys, there's no chance in hell that Miami regular season ends anywhere than on the road at Pitt. And of course, so those are your last 2 games, right? But that's half of your road games, and you have not had a bye week for 2 months. Like, all of that put together, yeah, it's a tougher path for Miami, than last year. But, yeah, you're expecting the defense to be top 50-ish as opposed to 110th. You're expecting the offense not to be number 1 overall again, probably top 25 to top 15. Though that put together, I think 9-3, 10-2 is reasonable. But yeah, people need to, I guess they're still processing because we're in the active draft portion of the calendar, right? You got the combine in a couple of weeks. You got pro day coming up on campus after that. Draft is in April. People are still associating Cam Ward with the active roster mentally, I think. And that's the hurdle they need to get over. And then when you accept, okay, cool, Carson Beck is here. What is Carson Beck? Who is Carson Beck? And what kind of player should we expect? And I think we should expect a top 20 to top 15 quarterback in the country, which is who he's been. But top 15 at a position is very different than number 1 with a bullet. So that's kind of my outlook. 9-3, maybe 10-2. And hopefully not as many injuries because, both my pro team and my college team, it was a mash unit. You're playing guys, a preponderance of snaps who you did not build this enterprise as foundational members. You know what I mean? Like Ahmad Moten, I'm so glad, his older brother played here. You know what I mean? Like, I love seeing him grow and develop at that defensive tackle spot. Played maybe 25, 35% more snaps than I would have liked. You know what I mean? Ruben Bain injured 3 plays into the opener at Florida and then was a shell of himself all season. That's not an equal trade. So hopefully a little bit of luck there, a little bit of luck here. And, looking for that return trip to Charlotte that, I've been putting off since 2017. But in a phrase that all fans know, maybe next year.
Couple things I want to bring up here. First of all, I would be remiss. You talk about the Kenny Pickett game in 2017. He was a Heisman finalist in 2021. He had a really, really good, what was it, 6th year in college, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I would be remiss if I did not say we spent 3 years on this podcast, 2018, 2019, 2020, and Kenny Pickett's headson one day, we'll read, had that one game against Miami.
Dude, if you even look back at the draft, if you look back at all these things, even being a Heisman Trophy candidate, the lead was on all of the highlights. The first 3 plays were from that game as a true freshman. We didn't even play them that year? Why are we on the summer jam screen?
Yeah.
Right. Why are we on the highlights? That was from then. We didn't even play them that year. And totally still, but that's the impact that a game against Miami can have.
Correct. Second thing I want to mention, we talked about Carson Beck, going through the offseason, through surgery, rehab, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's worth noting. I mean, yes, he had Tommy John surgery, right?
No, it's a different. It was the Brock Purdy surgery, so it's not. It was a repair. It was not a replacement. Okay. So that's like the difference between Tommy John, where they actually remove the ulnar collateral ligament and then use like an ACL or something from a cadaver, and that's the one that goes there. It was a different caliber, just from how it's hit. So it was repair, not a replacement.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But I guess her point was I know that type of injury traditionally takes the better part, if not a full year, to come back from. I think that's because we associate it with baseball, and you're trying to snap off 3,200 RPM curveballs and sliders and that kind of thing. Like, he's not trying to do that, so it's probably not as rigorous of a rehab before he's kind of loose. But the point is that he won't really be throwing until June, so he won't be taking any sort of live reps in spring practice, getting timing down. I mean, you can do so much in the film. So that's something I would wonder about is that the first time that he will be doing live reps, in a practice situation is like August, which is a pretty short runway for then going to play Notre Dame week 1, and it's a pretty quick on ramp, as you mentioned. I mean, South Florida, no slouch. Florida should be better. Like, Florida State after that. So I'm curious to see what he looks like at the gate. Other thing I wanted to ask about Cam, we talk about Lance Guidry. He's on. He's fired. The move was made to Heatherman, who was at Minnesota for the last few years. This is Mario. We're going into year 4 for Mario Cristobal. This is his 3rd defensive coordinator. Is there something different about Corey Heatherman here, or why should I expect that this will be something different?
I think that he's a rising star in the coaching ranks, and he's just tough, and you want to play with that toughness. You saw Minnesota doing that, and he has a background in education as a secondary ed major, and like he taught high school for a time, coached at that level, and talking about leveraging the skills of pedagogy into coaching, and how also focused on proper kind of communication, both from staff to players and then between players on the field, how that is essential to success. And I know that, we talk about those kind of things, but like as a person with an education degree, like that, the words he was saying and like the theories that he even put out there in his introductory presser, just the names of some of the not theologians, but some of the teaching philosophers, that was just like, hey, okay, like you're not just making that up. Like I remember that from secondary educational methods. Like, okay. So I think if you can imbue the spirit of strength that he portrays into this team, and have better communication, because that was really the heart of all the things in the secondary. You had a guy who's pointing this way, and then, Mish Powell a couple times, whomever. Look, you got him because I'm stepping up here. And then the other guy's like, wait, what? And then the other team was celebrating in the end zone. That lack of proper communication, that like, I'm talking and you're hearing me, is a thing that I'm interested to see. So, we're rebuilding the staff. Just announced today, or reported today, that Damian Lewis, a Miami alum, first round NFL draft pick in 2001. So his senior year was 2000, the year that we got robbed of playing for a national championship. But he, after a 10-year NFL career, and then coaching the defensive line for the Seahawks for 3 years, and then 1 year in college at Colorado, is being hired back at his alma mater down here as defensive tackles coach. We're retaining Jason Taylor, Hall of Fame player Jason Taylor, to coach defensive ends. I believe Heatherman's probably going to coach linebackers if he coaches a position. And then we've brought in, Zach Etheridge from Houston, as the defensive backs coach. So you're rebuilding the entire defensive staff, save Jason Taylor. And, you got young, hungry guys who want to go make a name for themselves. And I'm hopeful that that works in the instances of the last 2 defensive coordinators. What's different here is you're getting someone who's really ascending in their career, with Kevin Steele from before, a veteran guy who's been all over the place. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Lance Guidry, he rose up the ranks, fell down a few rungs of that ladder, and then had to build himself back up. But this is a guy who's been just on an upward trajectory his entire coaching career, even though it has been relatively short, because like he's only in his 30s, you know what I mean? But at every stop, he won the best assistant in the FCS level when he was at James Madison their last year there before they elevated to Division One. So they did well there. We've seen his work on the field before. Miami, that is. He coached linebackers at Rutgers when the year that we played them in the bowl game a couple years ago before taking 1 year at Minnesota. So hopefully, we're buying stock early in Corey Heatherman, and we'll see that come to fruition. But yeah, I think that's the one key difference. But in terms of like a Mario coached team, he's out here trying to find things that work, and he's not been prideful about just sticking with what didn't work. You wouldn't hire Josh Gaddis straight off of a Broyles Award as the best assistant in America. That offense was one of the worst that we've seen in recent history at Miami. And you sent him packing, real quickly. And that's somebody who, like I said, Broyles Award, fancied himself that his next job was going to be as a head coach. And you have the coup to get him to come and be an assistant here. You would think that you're going to stick that out. That was big money. Trust. That was big money that you got from the best assistant, or to get the best assistant in America up off of Michigan's payroll. Excuse me, but the work product wasn't there. Boom, we're going in a different way. So I give him credit for that, and hopefully look, it's worked with Shannon Dawson because he's somebody who's been up and down with various levels of exposure and success. But offense, I think that we've been able to scheme around the pieces better than defense, and hopefully Corey Heatherman and this young hungry staff will be able to utilize the talent that's there, because the talent is unquestionably on this roster to compete for and win the ACC championship. We just have to put it all together.
Joey, I'm good.
I think I'm good too. Cam, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time. Tell the people real quick where they can go find stuff.
No, absolutely, man. Wow, that kind of like just ended. I was expecting more, but hey, I get it. We've been talking for a while, man. But yeah, it's always fun to kick it with you guys. I'm the managing editor of stateoftheu.com over on SB Nation. Please come on over and fan with us. We have a great set of contributors and writers there, so we create a lot of content there. On the Magic Twitter machine, I'm at Underwood Sports, and for the State of the U, we're at the State of the U on all of our socials.
Yeah, go follow them there. YouTube, good Lord. Stateoftheu.com on the SB Nation Network. All things Miami. They do we told you guys over the years. I mean, just a phenomenal job covering the program. Not only giving you the facts, but also giving you the pulse of the fan and kind of the interpretations and distilling it down. There's film studies. I love more than going and reading the good, the bad, and the ugly for every game, and just kind of getting a sense of kind of how we feeling. So go check them out there. Cam, this has been awesome tonight. Kind of going through what the experience was in 2024, and I know that we actually talked kind of late in the season. We had you on back in November, I think previewing the fateful Georgia Tech game, as it were. But kind of looking forward to 2025. It's not like 24 was the end. There's still to come. So going to be interesting, kind of how things trend from here into August. So hopefully we'll have you on before.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I'm always around, so you can send up the bat signal for the Super Friends to get back together, man. So, like I said, it's always a pleasure. I hope that you guys have enjoyed listening and watching, and I'll definitely check in with you guys soon. So, as always, like I said, thanks, guys. Peace, love, all that stuff.
Hell yeah.
At the very least, Cam, we'll see you for the previews, which, we'll get through the we'll go ahead. We'll get through our State of the Program series, and Joey and I will take like a 2-week break, and then we'll be doing these all over again, because that's how the world works with Joey and I recording podcasts. So,
yeah,
it's a grand circle.
Hopefully before then, but we'll see.
Hopefully before then.
Like I said, I'm around, guys. Let me know.
Yep.
Cam, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother. Mike, let's get out of here. Let's go keep recording some more states of the program. Hit the subscribe button, youtube.com/@the ACC Podcast. Come find us anywhere you find audio podcast, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iTunes. There's a lot of places out there. Find us there. SNL Basketball Conference Pod, gmail.com.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Twitter, TRS Joey, at Daniel SI, at BC Podcast ACC. And once again, he is at Underwood Sports on Twitter. Go find him and all things State of the U, all things Miami. Go do that. Mike, anything else before we get out of here?
Subscribe to the YouTube.
Please do.
YouTube.com/at at the ACC Football Podcast. Like Joey mentioned, please subscribe.
Support our sponsors. Promo codes all in the description down below. That link for home field and for others as appropriate. We appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. I'm gonna go talk to teams.
Series rolls on, Joey.
It rolls on. We will be back very, very soon, having more of these State of the Program episodes. Until then, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, for Mr. Cam Underwood, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Until then, go Canes, go ACC.